Red Bull just unlocked something in Miami that could bring Verstappen back to dominance instantly. A car that was losing positions, now gaining up to half a second per lap. 10 kilograms of weight, gone. A completely redesigned aerodynamic concept, fixing their biggest weakness. And rule changes that suddenly remove everything that was holding them back. This isn't just an upgrade. This is a second launch of the entire season, built around one goal. Make Verstappen unstoppable again. It began with something Red Bull almost never admits. They got it wrong. Not just slightly off. Completely off. Because the RB22 didn't just lose performance at the start of the season, it lost identity. This was a car built to dominate. A car designed for Verstappen to push beyond the limit, lap after lap. Instead, it became unpredictable. Heavy. Difficult to control. And for the first time in years, Verstappen wasn't attacking. He was reacting. That alone tells you everything. Because when Verstappen can't attack, the problem is not the driver. It's the machine. And the data confirmed it. Up to 10 kilograms overweight. That's not a detail. That's a massive handicap. Every extra kilogram, slowing acceleration, hurting braking, reducing agility. We're talking about tenths of a second every lap. But the deeper issue wasn't weight. It was airflow. Red Bull made one of the boldest aerodynamic decisions on the grid. Extremely narrow side pods. A design that looked aggressive, revolutionary, efficient. But in reality, it broke the car's balance. Because airflow in Formula One isn't just about speed. It's about control. Air has to move in a precise way, feeding the floor, stabilizing the rear, generating downforce. And the RB22 couldn't do that. The air became unstable. Turbulent. Instead of helping the floor produce grip, it disrupted it. And once the floor stops working, the entire car collapses. Less downforce. Less stability. Less confidence. And confidence is everything. Because when a driver doesn't trust the car, they don't push. They hesitate. They hold back, even if just slightly. And those small hesitations turn into big losses. Corner after corner. Lap after lap. But it gets worse. Because the instability didn't stop at aerodynamics. It affected the suspension. The weight distribution. The way the car reacted under load. Everything became inconsistent. One corner felt fine. The next, completely different. And for a driver like Verstappen, who lives on precision, that's unacceptable. But the most shocking weakness? The starts. Red Bull, one of the worst on the grid. Losing positions before the race even settled. A problem caused by engine characteristics and poor integration with the energy system. Low torque at low speeds. Delayed response. And no system to compensate for it. Which meant Verstappen was losing ground before the race even began. And when you combine all of that, you don't just get a slow car. You get a car that can't be understood. Even the team admitted it. They couldn't fully explain the gap between simulation and reality. And in Formula One, that's the worst possible situation. Because if you don't understand the problem, you can't solve it. So Red Bull didn't patch the RB22. They rebuilt its foundation. Not with one upgrade, but with a complete reset. A second launch of the season. And that decision is what makes everything that follows so dangerous. And this is where Red Bull changed everything. Because instead of trying to fix one problem at a time, they attacked the root of all of them. Airflow. The moment they understood that the entire car was being limited by how air moved around it, they rebuilt that system completely. And it starts with the most important change. The side pods. No longer ultra-narrow. No longer forcing unstable air into the floor. Now, reshaped with a completely different philosophy. Wider at the top. Aggressively sloping down toward the floor. Creating a controlled pressure zone that guides airflow exactly where it needs to go. This isn't just a visual change. It's a correction of the car's biggest flaw. Because once the airflow becomes stable, the floor starts working again. And when the floor works, downforce returns. But more importantly, predictability returns. The car starts behaving the same way, corner after corner. And that's what Verstappen was missing. But Red Bull didn't stop there. Because airflow isn't just about one area. It's a chain. From the front of the car to the rear. And they rebuilt that chain piece by piece. The front wing, updated with new elements on the end plates. Not for aesthetics. For control. These elements reduce turbulence before it even reaches the side pods. Which means the air arriving at the middle of the car is cleaner. More stable. More usable. Then comes the midsection. A small detail, but critical. A deflector near the halo. A concept inspired by Ferrari. Its job? Redirect airflow over the cockpit toward the rear of the car. Feeding the engine cover. Feeding the rear wing. feeding the entire aerodynamic structure. And finally, the rear. The engine cover redesigned. The shark fin reshaped. All working together to stabilize airflow as it moves toward the back of the car. Because if the rear is stable, the driver can trust the car on entry, on exit, at the limit. Now step back and look at what they've done. They didn't just improve airflow. They controlled it. From the first contact at the front wing, to the final release at the rear wing. And when you control airflow across the entire car, you don't just gain performance. You unlock it. But there's another layer. One that makes this even more dangerous. Weight. Because while fixing airflow, they also removed up to 10 kilograms from the car. That's not just lighter. That's transformative. Better acceleration. Sharper braking. Faster direction changes. Every single phase of the lap improves. And suddenly, the RB22 is no longer fighting itself. It's working as one system. Balanced. Predictable. Responsive. But here's where everything connects. Because all of this arrives at the exact moment the FIA changes the rules. And those changes? They remove the exact behaviors that made the RB22 so difficult to drive. Super clipping, smoothed out. No more unpredictable slowdowns. No more sudden resistance. Just clean, consistent behavior. And for Verstappen, that's everything. Because give him a car that behaves consistently, and he will find the limit. Every time. And once he finds it, he pushes beyond it. And that's when he becomes unstoppable. So now the picture is clear. A car that was unstable, now controlled. A car that was heavy, now lighter. A car that was unpredictable, now consistent. And a driver who no longer has to guess what the car will do next. But there's still one problem. One final barrier between theory and reality. Because none of this matters until the car hits the track in Miami. And when it does, everything will be decided in a matter of laps. And now, everything comes down to one moment. The first laps in Miami. Because this is where all the theory, all the simulation, all the hidden work meets reality. And reality in Formula One is brutal. There's no time to ease into it. No time to slowly understand a new car. Because Miami is a sprint weekend. One practice session. 1 hour. That's all Verstappen has to feel a completely transformed RB22. A car with new aerodynamics, new balance, new behavior. Everything he learned in the first 3 races no longer applies. And that's the risk. Because if the setup isn't perfect from the start, if the balance is slightly off, if the tires don't behave as expected, then all that potential stays locked. But if they get it right, everything changes instantly. Because this isn't just a more stable car. It's a car that finally matches Verstappen's driving style. Sharp on entry, responsive on throttle, predictable at the limit. And when those 3 things align, Verstappen doesn't just drive fast. He controls the race. Lap by lap, corner by corner. But here's the detail that could change everything. Qualifying. Because if Red Bull has truly fixed the airflow, if the weight reduction delivers what they expect, if the new front wing and side pods work together, then Verstappen doesn't start in the middle of the grid anymore. He starts at the front. And starting at the front, removes every weakness they had before. No traffic. No dirty air. No need to overtake. Just clean laps. Controlled pace. Strategic freedom. And that's where Red Bull becomes dangerous again. Because once they control the race, they dictate everything. Tire strategy. Pit windows. Race tempo. And suddenly, the team that was reacting is now forcing others to react. But there's another layer. One that most people are missing. Because while Red Bull is fixing its car, the FIA has already changed the rules. And those changes don't just help stability. They reduce the extreme advantages other teams had. Less boost. More predictable energy behavior. Smaller gaps in straight-line speed. Which means even if Red Bull isn't the absolute fastest car, they don't need to be. They just need to be close. Because with Verstappen, close is enough. He finds time where others can't. He takes risks others won't. He extracts performance that doesn't appear in data. And once he's in that position, everything becomes possible. But there's still uncertainty. Because no matter how strong the package looks, no one truly knows how it will behave over a full race distance. High temperatures, long stints, pressure, degradation. That's where real performance is tested. And that's where championships are decided. So Miami becomes more than just a race. It becomes a reveal. The moment we find out if Red Bull has solved its biggest problem, or simply masked it. But if the answer is real, if the car is finally understood, if Verstappen can push without limits, then this isn't just a comeback. It's a warning. Because the version of Red Bull that learns from its mistakes is the version that dominates. And if Miami is the moment they figured it out, then the rest of the grid isn't just dealing with a faster car. They're dealing with something much more dangerous. A team that has rediscovered its identity. And a driver who never lost his. And this is where the story reaches its breaking point. Because everything we've built toward, everything Red Bull changed, everything Verstappen needs, comes down to one final truth. Understanding. Not speed. Not upgrades. Not even raw performance. Understanding the car. Because for the first time this season, Red Bull might finally have it. And if they do, then Miami doesn't just change one race. It changes the entire direction of the championship. Think about it. At the start of the season, the RB22 was fast in theory, but disconnected in reality. The data said one thing. The track said another. The drivers felt something completely different. That gap, between expectation and reality, is what destroyed their performance. But now, that gap might be gone. Because every change they've made is not just about adding performance. It's about aligning the car with reality. Making sure what they simulate is what they feel. Making sure what they design is what they can actually use. And when that alignment happens, development becomes unstoppable. Because now every upgrade works. Every change makes sense. Every adjustment moves the car forward. That's the Red Bull we've seen dominate in the past. Not just fast, but evolving faster than anyone else. And here's the key detail. They don't need to be perfect in Miami. They just need to be close. Because once they're close, they start learning. And once they start learning, they accelerate. Race after race. Upgrade after upgrade. Until suddenly, they're not chasing anymore. They're leading. And this is why Miami matters more than it seems. Because it's not about winning immediately. It's about unlocking the path to winning. If Verstappen steps out of that car and says, "I understand it now," that's it. That's the moment everything changes. Because once he understands the car, he adapts instantly. He pushes harder, finds new limits, creates lap time that doesn't exist for anyone else. And from that point, the RB22 is no longer a problem. It becomes a weapon. And when Red Bull has a weapon, history tells us what happens next. They don't just win. They dominate. But there's one final layer. One question that has been building from the very beginning. Because this isn't just about Red Bull improving. It's about timing. They fixed the car at the exact moment the rules changed. They removed instability at the exact moment instability was reduced by regulation. They unlocked performance at the exact moment others lost theirs. And that combination is what makes this so dangerous. Because if all of it aligns, then Miami won't just show a better Red Bull. It will reveal something much bigger. A team that went from confusion to clarity, from instability to control, from chasing to hunting. And if that transition is complete, then the real story of this season doesn't start in Australia. It doesn't start in China. It starts here, in Miami. The moment Red Bull stopped trying to fix the car and finally understood it. And once that happens, there's only one question left. Not whether Verstappen can win again, but how long it will take before no one can stop him.